It was a normal day like any other. I was sitting in the store's office, analyzing the spreadsheets and sales reports for the month, when the phone rang. "Ms. Lucy, we have a small problem with a customer upstairs." I recognized the voice of one of the managers, Tony, a trusted employee who helped me keep everything in order. "What happened?" I asked, already imagining that it was an unhappy customer. It was common for us to deal with people who thought they owned the world, but we always resolved it professionally. "A woman is demanding exclusive service, throwing clothes on the floor and mistreating the employees. She's being very rude, ma'am. She said she spent a lot of money here and wants to be treated like royalty," I sighed. I hated this kind of situation, but part of my job was to make sure my employees weren't disrespected. "I'm going up," I replied, hanging up the phone. Before leaving, I checked my reflection in the mirror. My outfit was as simple as ever. Tailored pants, a navy blue silk blouse, and my hair tied back in a discreet bun. I never made a point of showing off anything, despite being the owner of the most exclusive store in town. I liked being there like any other employee, without needing immediate recognition. As I walked up the stairs, I could already hear a woman's raised voice. "This is a joke," she shouted. "I said I want VIP service. Do you know who you're talking to? I've already spent a fortune in this store." When I reached the main hall, my eyes fell on the woman who was causing a commotion. The shock was immediate. Andrea, my sister. She was surrounded by bags and boxes of expensive brands. Her tight dress and high heels gleamed under the store lights. She was talking to an employee, a young woman who was trying to maintain her composure, but whose look was already showing discomfort. My heart sank, but not with longing, but with revolt. Andrea and I hadn't seen each other for years, ever since I left home after a lifetime of being treated like an unimportant shadow. Our mother always said that Andrea was the star of the family, the one who deserved everything good and the best. Me? I just existed. I wasn't encouraged, I wasn't supported, I wasn't even recognized. But I grew up, I worked, I fought, and I built my own fortune without anyone in my family knowing. And now, there she was, inside my store, yelling at my employees. "What's going on here?" My voice echoed through the room. Andrea turned around, ready to spout more arrogance, but she frowned when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked with a mixture of contempt and disbelief. "I work here," I answered simply, watching her expression change slightly. She snorted. "This is a luxury store. You working here as a saleswoman?" "Just like you," she laughed mockingly. "Oh, I didn't know they were letting homeless people in. But it makes sense, you've always been that miserable person." The employees exchanged uncomfortable glances. Tony moved beside me, as if he were ready to intervene, but I held up a hand to stop him. I would solve this myself. What Andrea didn't know was that the twist in this story was already happening, and the outcome would be unforgettable. Andrea looked at me with the same contempt as always, her eyes assessing my simple clothes, my tied hair, as if she were making sure that I was still inferior to her. The arrogance in her expression was the same one I had known since childhood. "Is that what you've become, Lucy?" She laughed, taking an expensive purse from one of the bags and shaking it in the air. "A store employee? I feel sorry for you. While I spend whatever I want without looking at the price, what should you earn?" "A pittance." The employees around us looked uncomfortable. Tony crossed his arms, holding back his irritation. The saleswoman who had been humiliated earlier lowered her head, embarrassed. But I was calm. "You seem very interested in my life, Andrea," he said, keeping his voice calm, "but I think the focus here should be on your behavior." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me your moralizing tone. You've always been the righteous little bitch. I only demand what I deserve, and honestly, this store is well below my standards. It needs to improve a lot to deserve my presence here." I took a step forward, picking up one of the bags that were next to her and analyzing the products inside. All designer. She really hadn't saved any money. "If you think that," I continued, turning the bag over in her hands, "then maybe you shouldn't take anything." She widened her eyes, confused for a moment, and then let out a mocking laugh. "What are you saying? Of course I'm going to take it. I already paid." "No, you haven't paid yet," I replied, holding up one of the bills that were on the counter. "And by the way, your purchase has just been canceled." Silence filled the room. All the employees held their breath. Even the customers nearby stopped their choices to look in our direction. "What's up?" Andrea stepped forward, her face contorted with anger. "You heard me right. We don't sell to customers who treat our employees badly. You were extremely rude. You threw clothes on the floor. You disrespected the staff. That goes against the principles of this store. Therefore, your purchases are canceled." "You can't do that," she shouted, her voice high-pitched. I crossed my arms. "Yes, I can. After all, this store belongs to me." The impact of those words was immediate. Andrea blinked, confused, as if I had just said something impossible. She looked around, as if she expected someone to deny what I had said. "What? You heard me. I own this store. Everything here belongs to me. So yes, I can cancel your order, and what's more, I can ask you to leave since customers who treat employees this way are not welcome." Her face turned red, then pale. "That's a lie. You own everything? You've always been a loser. Losers don't build empires." Andrea was speechless, stuttering something unintelligible. So, before she could try to react, I picked up the internal phone and pressed a button. "Security, we have a customer causing trouble upstairs. Please escort her out." Andrea glared at me with pure hatred. "You're going to regret this, Lucy." I smiled. On the contrary, I don't think I've ever felt so good. And then, as everyone watched in silence, my sister was removed from my store without any of her purchases. Andrea was dragged out of my store under the watchful eyes of employees and customers. Her face was red with fury, and she still tried to get away from the security guards. But it was in vain. She screamed, yelled, and called me every name in the book, but I remained motionless, watching her triumphant exit. "This isn't going to happen," she roared, already at the door. "You're going to regret it, Lucy." I let out a heavy sigh when I finally saw her disappear down the sidewalk. The silence that followed was soon broken by murmurs and surprised looks. Tony, who had been watching everything closely, turned to me with a satisfied smile. "Well, that was unexpected," he commented. "For you, maybe," I replied, adjusting my blouse. For me, it was only a matter of time. The saleswoman who had been humiliated, a young woman named Katie, approached timidly. "Ms. Lucy, I didn't know you owned the store." I smiled at her. "I don't like to show off. I prefer to be seen as part of the team, not as someone unapproachable." She nodded, but still looked disconcerted. "Thank you very much for what you did. I've never had anyone stand up for me like that before. You don't have to thank me for something that is your right. No employee here should accept disrespect." She smiled, looking relieved. Little by little, the other employees went back to their work, but the energy in the room was different. There was a certain pride in the air. Many seemed pleased with what had happened, as if they had witnessed a historic moment. But I knew it wouldn't end there. Andrea wasn't the kind of person who accepted defeat without a revenge. And I was right. The next morning, I arrived at the store as usual, drinking my coffee while checking my emails and reports. Everything was calm until Tony knocked on the office door. "Lucy, I think you'll want to watch this." He handed me a cell phone already open to a video. As soon as I pressed play, there was Andrea in a home recording, looking like she was crying and putting on a theatrical expression. "Guys, I need to get this off my chest," she began, sniffling exaggeratedly. "Yesterday, I went through one of the biggest humiliations of my life. I was thrown out of a luxury store by someone who claims to be my sister." Tony rolled his eyes. "It's all over social media. She posted it everywhere." I kept watching. "I've always been a hardworking woman who worked hard to achieve everything I have," Andrea continued, her voice choked with falseness. "But this woman who didn't even deserve my last name, she mistreated me, canceled my purchases, humiliated me in front of everyone, and had security guards throw me out. All out of pure envy." I paused the video and took a deep breath. "What are they saying?" I asked. Tony scrolled down to show me the comments. There was everything. Some people defended Andrea, saying it was absurd for a sister to treat another sister that way, but many others criticized her, calling her arrogant and vain, saying she must have done something to deserve it. Some even mentioned having witnessed the moment and confirmed that she treated the employees with disrespect. "She wanted the internet to turn against you, but I think it backfired," Tony said, holding back a laugh. I put my cell phone on the table and crossed my arms. That doesn't surprise me, but Andrea never knew how to play this game properly. Tony arched an eyebrow. What do you mean? I smirked. She likes attention, and I'm going to give it to her, but in my own way. I knew exactly how to put an end to this nonsense once and for all. That same day, I had my marketing team prepare an official statement. It wouldn't be a direct answer to Andrea, because I wouldn't stoop to her level, but something that would clarify the situation without compromising myself. After all, my store was a serious business, and I wouldn't let my sister use a cheap scandal to tarnish my reputation. 2 hours later, the store's official profile published the following statement. We value respect for all our customers and employees on our premises. We do not tolerate any form of disrespect or inappropriate treatment. Customers are always welcome, as long as they know how to treat people with the same politeness and courtesy they would like to receive. It was a direct message so that everyone would understand, without me having to name names, and the effect was immediate. In the comments, dozens of customers began to praise the store, supporting the company's stance. Some reported situations in which they had been treated well there. Others began to question Andrea's version of events. Within a few hours, the backlash was already turning against her, but I knew she wouldn't give up so easily. That night, when I was at home reviewing some reports, my cell phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw my mother's name. I sighed before answering. Hello, Lucy? What did you do to your sister? Her voice sounded harsh, accusatory. I closed my eyes for a moment, gathering patience. Mom, I just did what any other store owner would do. I kicked out a customer who was being rude and disrespectful. But this customer is your sister. And does that mean I should accept being humiliated in my own store? My voice came out firmer than I expected. On the other end of the line, my mother sighed. She's devastated, Lucy. She's been crying since yesterday, saying you ruined her reputation. I laughed humorlessly. Oh, so now she knows what it's like to have her reputation damaged. From what I've seen, she was the one who tried to do this to me first. You know how Andrea is, she's always been impulsive. Impulsive? I interrupted, incredulous. Mom, she called me a beggar in front of everyone, treated me like trash in my own store. Silence. She didn't know the store was yours, my mother argued, as if that justified anything. And if she had known, what would have changed? Would she have been polite just for the sake of it? Nothing. No answer. I sighed tiredly. Mom, I know you've always protected Andrea, but this time I'm not going to accept it. She needs to learn that she can't go around treating others like dirt and expect everything to be fine. My mother didn't answer right away, but then her voice came lower, hesitant. What do you intend to do now? Nothing, I answered. I've already done what I needed to do. I just hope she learns her lesson too and stops this show. Good night, Mom. I hung up before she could try to change my mind. I rested my head on the couch and closed my eyes. I knew my mother would still try to pat Andrea on the head, but I wasn't going to back down. Now I had to wait and see what her next move would be. The next day, I went to the store earlier than usual. I knew Andrea wouldn't leave things as they were, and it didn't take long for my intuition to be confirmed. Around 10 a.m., an unusual movement caught my attention. An employee came rushing up to me, her eyes wide. Miss Lucy, your sister is here. I took a deep breath. Where? At the entrance, arguing with the security guard. She wants to come in, but he won't let her. I went to the door and before I even saw her, I heard her shrill voice. This is absurd. Let me through. Do you know who I am? I crossed my arms and stopped in front of her. Yes, Andrea. He knows, and so do I. She turned to me, her eyes shining with fury. Do you think you can humiliate me like that? I raised an eyebrow. I think you were the one who tried to humiliate me yesterday, weren't you? She opened her mouth to retort, but stopped herself when she noticed that some customers were watching the scene. Lucy, we're sisters. This can't go on like this. I agree. That's why I came personally to tell you that you're no longer welcome here. She laughed mockingly. You're kidding, right? I signaled to the security guard. Show the lady out, please. You can't do this to me. But I could, and I did. Andrea was led out of the store amidst the curious gaze and murmur of customers. When the door closed behind her, I looked at my team. Let's get back to work, and so we did. But I knew the war wasn't over. Andrea wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. Something told me she would fight back, and I was right. 2 days after the chaos at the store, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. From the way she knocked on the door, I could already imagine what was coming. "Mom, what happened?" I asked as I opened the door. She came in without answering, crossing her arms and staring at me. "What happened? Is that what you're asking me? You're destroying your sister." I closed the door inside. "What happened now? Is Andrea devastated? You canceled all her purchases at the store and even banned her from entering." "Yes. She was rude to the employees, tried to humiliate me in front of everyone, and still refused to apologize." "What did you want me to do? You could have talked to her before making such an extreme decision." I laughed humorlessly. "Funny, huh? When she called me a beggar in front of everyone, no one asked her to talk to me before humiliating me." My mother pursed her lips. "You know how she is. And that's why she never learns. Because you always pat her on the head." She said she was the butt of jokes, that no one wanted to talk to her, that she was being left out, and it was my fault. Or was she the one who caused this situation? My mother looked at me as if she expected me to give in, but not this time. "Look, Mom, I don't have time for this. Andrea did what she did, and now she's reaping the consequences. If she wants to fix this, she needs to start by apologizing. And you think she's going to do that? Then it's not my problem anymore." My mother looked at me for a while longer, then sighed and left without saying goodbye. I closed the door and leaned against it. I knew it wasn't over. Andrea was too proud to admit she was wrong, and I was right. The next day, she showed up again, but this time she wasn't alone. When I saw who was with her, I knew the game had changed. My mother and father were with Andrea. As soon as they entered the store, my manager came to tell me, "Miss Lucy, your family is here again, and it doesn't look like it's for a friendly visit." I took a deep breath and went to the reception. I found the 3 of them standing in the middle of the room, drawing the attention of customers and employees. "Lucy," my mother was the first to speak, "this has gone too far." I crossed my arms. "What now?" My father stepped forward, with his usual authoritative tone of voice. "You need to sort this out with your sister. She's ruined. Her friends are gone. People are talking, and all this because of a silly little fight." "Silly little fight?" I repeated, incredulous. "She tried to humiliate me in front of everyone and throw me out of my own store. But, of course, I'm the one who's wrong, right?" "It's not about who's right or wrong," Andrea finally spoke. "It's about you understanding that family comes first." I laughed, shaking my head. "Interesting. Because when I was the one who needed respect and support, no one talked about it." "Lucy," my mother began, but I interrupted her. "I'm tired. I'm tired of being treated like I was less than. I've always been the unimportant sister, the simplest one, the one no one took seriously. Now that I own the luxury store where you love to spend your money, everything has changed, right?" The 3 of them fell silent. "You know, Andrea, I could let you keep shopping here. I could ignore what happened and pretend that none of it affected me. But I won't. You need to learn that the world doesn't revolve around you." "Lucy, please," my mother insisted. "I'm not forbidding you from coming here, but until Andrea acknowledges what she did and truly apologizes, there's no talking." My sister huffed, crossing her arms. "I'll never lower myself for you." "Then we have a problem," I replied. She glared at me and left the store, her heels clicking on the floor. My parents followed her, but before they left, my mother looked at me. "You've changed, Lucy." I smiled. "Yes, Mom. I finally have, and I don't regret it." After that day, I spent weeks without hearing from Andrea. I thought we would never speak again, but one day she showed up at the store, alone and without makeup, unlike what I was used to seeing. "Can I talk to you?" Her voice was lower than ever. I looked at her, assessing. "Yes." We went to my office, and for the first time, I saw my sister swallow her pride. "I was wrong," she said. "I always thought you would never amount to anything, and seeing you here, the owner of all this, bothered me. But I had no right to treat you the way I did." I remained silent, letting her continue. "I lost clients, friends, Even my own husband is embarrassed to go out with me after what happened. Only then did I realize how I treated the people around me. She took a deep breath. I know that an apology doesn't erase everything, but I'm sorry, Mare. For the first time in my life, I saw sincerity in her eyes. You're sorry, I replied, but if you ever do something like that again, you can forget I exist. She nodded. Never again, I promise. And so life went on. Andrea was never the same arrogant person she was before, and I continued to be the owner of my store and my story. And this time, no one was going to make me feel inferior.